when a poor Filipino boy named Arvin from Quezon City stepped onto the AGT stage. Nobody in the room could have imagined the kind of storm he was about to unleash. He didn't look like someone who came to change the night or shake the world. His clothes were simple, the kind you'd buy secondhand in a crowded Divisoria market. His shoes were so worn out that the stitching around the toes looked ready to give up at any moment. Yet Arvin walked with a quiet courage, the type of courage that only comes from surviving places that most people will never understand. Growing up beside a broken Simon Cowell well in the outskirts of Tondo, Manila, he spent most of his childhood fetching water in old plastic containers, singing to himself as the echo bounced through the well's stone walls. That echo became his first audience, the cramped corners of Manila became his first stage, and the constant struggle became the fire that shaped his voice. Arvin's life was never easy. He had worked since he was young, selling sampaguita flowers near traffic lights, cleaning fish in the wet markets of Navotas, carrying heavy sacks of rice in the back streets of Cebu, anything that could earn a few pesos to support his family. Music wasn't just a dream to him, it was an escape. It was the only part of life that didn't feel borrowed or broken. When he was tired, hungry, or soaked by Manila rain, he would sit beside that old Simon Cowell well and sing Elvis songs he learned from a cracked radio his neighbor discarded. The radio barely worked, but every time Elvis played, Arvin memorized every note, every tone, every breath like it was a treasure map leading him away from poverty. When he reached America for his audition, it felt nothing like home. The lights were brighter than anything he'd ever seen in Baguio, and the arena was bigger than any street stage he had ever performed on in Davao City. The cameras moved like mechanical giants, capturing every step he took. The audience whispered, wondering how a boy with such a fragile appearance could survive the pressure of standing before the AGT judges. But Arvin wasn't afraid, not because he was fearless, but because he had already faced struggles far harder than any audition. If he could survive poverty, hunger, and long nights beside a cold well with nothing but determination, then he could survive this stage too. The moment he announced he would sing an Elvis Presley classic, the entire room shifted. The judges exchanged curious looks. Even Simon Cowell, notorious for seeing thousands of performers, raised his eyebrows with a hint of interest. No one expected greatness from a boy who carried the weight of Filipino hardship in his eyes. But in that split second, as the spotlight locked onto him, something powerful stirred, something that made the audience lean forward, sensing that this wasn't just another audition. It was the beginning of a miracle. The very first note that came out of Arvin's mouth didn't just echo across the AGT arena, it exploded through it, like a shockwave no one was prepared for. It was strong, deep, and unbelievably rich, carrying the unmistakable soul of Elvis Presley yet wrapped in something new, something uniquely Filipino. The sound hit the judges' table with such force that Simon Cowell, known worldwide for his stone-faced reactions and brutally honest critiques, instantly snapped his head upward. His eyes widened, not in politeness, but in genuine disbelief. It was the kind of reaction Simon only had when something truly rare, almost once in a lifetime, stood right in front of him. Arvin had barely sung 3 seconds, and the entire arena felt like it stopped breathing. People watching from Davao City, families gathered around televisions in Iloilo, students watching from cafes in Baguio, and workers on their breaks in Makati felt the electricity travel through the screen. The Filipino community around the world, whether in California, Dubai, Hong Kong, or Toronto, felt chills run instantly down their spine. They knew this voice wasn't ordinary. This wasn't just a cover. It was a rebirth of a legend through a boy shaped by hunger, hope, and the echo of a Simon Cowell back in the slums of Tondo. Every note he sang carried the weight of all those long nights practicing with nothing but the well's hollow acoustics guiding him. That stone well had been his training studio, his music school, his stage, and now its echoes lived inside every word he delivered on that massive American stage. As the performance rolled on, the audience slowly transformed from silent shock to emotional surrender. People began placing their hands over their mouths, staring at Arvin as though witnessing something impossible. It wasn't just the power of his voice, it was the control. The way he delivered the Elvis vibrato with surgical precision. The way he hit the low notes with a richness that felt carved from molten bronze. The way he climbed into the higher tones with such clean intensity that it felt like a blade cutting through air. The judges started exchanging glances, the kind of looks that said, "Are we actually seeing this? Is this real?" Heidi leaned forward with her mouth open. Sophia's eyes shimmered with excitement. Howie pressed his hands together, as if trying to contain the goosebumps running through him. But Simon leaned even closer, studying Arvin the way a master jeweler examines a stone that shouldn't exist in nature. Every second of the performance felt like destiny unfolding. You could almost see Arvin's journey in the way he held the microphone, with the grip of someone who knew struggle intimately, who knew what it meant to fight for every opportunity. Each note wasn't just sung, it was lived. By the time he reached the middle of the song, the audience was no longer just watching. They were surrendering, letting the experience carry them like a wave rising higher and higher. Simon Cowell's slight smile, a smile he rarely gives, said everything. Arvin had gone beyond surprising him. He had shaken him. And when Simon is shaken, the world pays attention. By the time Arvin hit his final, earth-shaking note, the entire AGT arena transformed into something unforgettable. It wasn't just applause, it was an eruption. People from every corner of the room stood up as if a wave swept through them, rising with raw emotion that couldn't be controlled. Audience members from Makati, Pasay, Taguig, and Filipinos watching across the world felt tears forming, not because the performance was simply good, but because it carried a truth that could be felt in every heartbeat. This wasn't just a song. This was a story, a journey, a miracle coming alive. The kid who grew up beside a broken Simon Cowell in the deep poverty of Tondo had just delivered a performance strong enough to shake one of the biggest stages in the world. Golden confetti exploded from the ceiling before Arvin even realized what was happening. 1 second he was singing. The next second Simon Cowell slammed the golden buzzer with a force that echoed louder than the applause itself. Simon didn't just tap it, he attacked it, hitting it like he couldn't hold back the truth any longer. That truth was simple. Arvin wasn't just a singer, he was a phenomenon. Simon stood up, clapping and smiling in a way people rarely get to see. It was the kind of reaction usually reserved for legends, not for a poor boy who traveled from the noisy streets of Cebu, the crowded markets of Iloilo, and the challenging alleys of Manila. As the golden confetti rained down, Arvin froze, his eyes wide, his breath shaking, his hands trembling. The confetti stuck to his clothes, his hair, even to the tears forming on his face. In that moment, he wasn't thinking about fame or success. He was thinking about home. He was thinking about his mother in Quezon City, praying for him every night. He was thinking about the countless evenings sitting beside that Simon Cowell, singing into the darkness when the electricity went out, using the echo of stone walls as his only sound system. He was thinking about hunger, about hardship, about dreams that felt too far away to touch. And now, here he was, bathed in golden light, standing in front of the world as a champion of pure talent. The audience kept cheering, louder and louder, as if trying to lift Arvin even higher. People waved Filipino flags. Some cried openly. Others shouted his name like he had just won a world title. The judges stood to their feet, clapping with pride, shock, and admiration. This was no longer just an audition. It had become a moment that people would talk about for years. Arvin finally placed his hand over his heart, looking up into the falling gold with tears streaming down his face. He wasn't just grateful, he was transformed. In that instant, the entire world saw what true determination, true passion, and true Filipino spirit look like. From poverty to the biggest stage on earth, from a Simon Cowell to a Golden Buzer moment, Arvin had proved that greatness can rise from anywhere,